This wretched state of being is the fate of those sad souls who lived a life, but lived it with no blame, and with no praise. They are mixed with a repulsive choir of angels, neither faithful nor unfaithful to their God, who undecided stood but for themselves. Heaven, to keep its beauty, cast them out, but even hell itself would not receive them, for fear the damned might glory over them. These wretches have no hope of truly dying, and this blind life they lead is so abject it makes them envy every other fate. Abandon all hope, ye who enter here. Hello there, I'm Kaz, and welcome to this year's horrible Halloween special. This year, we're going to be talking about a series that, for the longest time, I never really cared for the direction that they've been going with in recent years. I'm of course talking about Castlevania. Now, I have nothing against the Metroidvania-style games. Far from it, they're all solid titles, but I always preferred the Pre-Synth and the Night entries, or as I like to call them, Classicvania, as opposed to the accidental Reese's fusion with the Metroid formula and RPG elements. With that said, the newest title in the series, Lords of Shadow Mirror of Fate, seems to harken back to the older style of Castlevania. So, did Mirror of Fate whip up a classic, or should they stick to the Castlevania formula? Let's find out. We're getting interrupted, aren't we? Oh, hey Sparky, what's up?
Who are you fooling, man? Mirror of Fate isn't even coming out this year.
But I have a copy right here. I mean, were you kidding? I just got it to Okay, let's get this out of the way. I have not played 999, the title which preceded today's game. For those of you who don't know, 999 was a visual novel on the Nintendo DS that became a cult hit back when it was released in 2010. It became so popular and so beloved that the developers decided to announce a sequel less than a year after its North American launch. In fact, before Zero Escape Virtue's Last Stand reached our shores, Chunsoft, the developers behind Zero Escape and 999, have already been in talks to develop another sequel. Anyway, in preparation for this game, I tried my hardest to get my hands on a copy of 999, but as I said earlier, it was all for naught. However, I did talk to one of my good friends who had played the game, and this is what he had to say. The gameplay was minimal as expected for a visual novel, but the story was very good. It had a good plot, and that's all it had going for it. I should also mention at this point that you don't need to play the first game in the series in order to enjoy the second. It may help at points, but we'll get into that later in the story. Also, subtle much? Might as well make the number of the beast the theme.
The number of the beast is not 666. Often in dreams, numbers appear upside down and backward. So 666 becomes 999.
So, yeah, I never did play 999 when it first came out, though I plan to make amends for that mistake in the future. For now, though, we have to ask, is Zero Escape a rewarding experience, or should this be Chunsoft's last stand? Say, Sparky, you want to chime in on this one?
That depends. You mind telling me why you're wearing a skirt?
It's a Belmont thing. I mean, it was either that, or a ballerina tutu.
I'm Simon Belmont, prima ballerina.
I'm gonna go. I think reality's calling me.
Well, looks like I'm alone for this one. Let's run away from Zero Escape, Virtue's Last Stand. Should probably get out of this skirt though, or people are going to think this is really weird. With apologies for the upcoming guerrilla-style videography, the story goes like this. You and 8 other people were kidnapped and placed into a facility in order to play a game, unbeknownst as to why they were chosen. The goal of this game is to get enough points in order to open up a door with the number 9 on it. In order to do that, you and 8 other people need to team up in groups and solve a series of puzzles. All the while, the mastermind behind this game is a player, just like you, but you don't know who it is. It could be anyone, even you. It's easy to compare this plot to Saw, except Zero Escape is more experimental on the selfish nature of humanity, and less mindless torture porn. As expected for a visual novel, there is a lot of story and tons of choices to make. The plot gets pretty complicated at some points. Believe me, any game that involves multiverse theory and Schrodinger's cat for thematic purposes is anything but simple. Though, in all honesty, it's really easy to follow and enjoy the story. Characters are well written and distinct, and they really do make choosing sides all the more difficult in a game fueled by trust. The only aspect of the narrative that doesn't work is you, or rather the character you play as named Sigma. In such a serious situation, it's amazing that he comes off as the one you wish would die, as he constantly tries to get some cheap, perverted thrill when everybody, including himself, could die, or worse yet, be forced to live in some unknown facility for the rest of their lives. There's also one character who tries way too hard to be memorable and funny and fails at both aspects. I'm not going to say that they're bad, and I won't say who it is. Bunny's not funny at all. Not a bad written character, their voice actor just sounded like they were trying way too hard. Aside from the very unlikable protagonist and this other character, the rest of the cast is full of wonderful characters with colorful and unique personalities. You're sure to develop your favorites during your time in this game, mine are Clover, Kay, and Vi, and you'll definitely want to see them make it to the end with you. Their respective voice actors sell their parts at the very least, but at their best, they capture the mood of being trapped in a facility where the participant you're working with may just kill you. There's also some genuinely funny moments in Zero Escape, mainly from its twisted dark humor that really works. The premise is fantastic and Zero Escape executes it almost perfectly. There's a plethora of multiple endings, most of which tend to end either horrifically or tragically, but they do encourage you to play through the multiple paths and uncover every little speck that you can in this facility. There's plot twists in every story path that keep you guessing while filling you in on important details in other parts that drive you to keep playing and unravel the entire story. Best of all, you do not need to play 999 in order to enjoy the narrative. I'm sure veteran no-nary players will understand key elements of the plot more than those that haven't, and they'll be able to answer some of the many questions you'll be asking yourself during the events of the plot. But anybody can jump right in without any knowledge of the previous game and enjoy a fantastic mystery horror that explores the selfish characteristic of human nature, and a truly horrific game that is most definitely a game of life or death. But a game is only as good as the sum of its parts. So, how do the rest of them fare? As far as the gameplay goes, Zero Escape is a puzzler. Quite literally, it is all about interacting with the environment, collecting clues and items, solving puzzles, and escaping from a locked room. In order to escape, you need to find a password and unlock a safe with a key that will let you escape, and that's where what you'll collect comes in handy. Sometimes, items need to be examined, flipped around, combined with another item, or even taken apart. These items that you collect are usually necessary in order to find and solve a smaller puzzle, like adding up numbers in a specific order to 91, or figuring out the weight of coins, or so on and so forth. I'm not going to spoil them all for you. These puzzles are incredibly engaging and incomparable. No two of them will ever play the same, and they get very challenging. Luckily, you're given the option to switch between a hard mode and an easy mode, the easy mode giving you more hints as to what to do. Depending on your difficulty, you'll get different rewards and unlock different secrets for your enjoyment. But be warned, once you change to easy, you can't change back until you either exit the room or change to a different story path. So if you want to get the best secrets, you're going to have quite the challenge on your hands. And then there's the Ambidex game. It's rather simple. You either choose to ally or betray your opponent, which leads to you gaining or losing points in the Nonary game and branches off past in the game's multiple endings. Speaking of multiple endings, Zero Escape's path changes depending on the key decisions you make in the Nonary game. Who you choose to go with, who you ally or betray, even decisions that you make in other timelines can coincide with the ones that you make in your current one. It adds a lot of replay value to the game. You're sure to get at least 30 hours out of it, and even more if you want to discover every single secret in this mysterious facility. With such a vast amount of replayability, such excellent and well-constructed puzzles, all cobbled together with a powerful narrative, you have to ask yourself, are there any vices to Zero Escape Virtue's Last Stand? There's only one, and that would be that the game simply has too much story relative to the gameplay that breaks up the segments between the story. I know that in the visual novel genre, gameplay isn't a major focus, but that's not my point. Regardless of whether it's an action-adventure, a 2D side-scroller, or a text adventure, I play a game for the experience brought about through the gameplay mechanics. If there's a good story or excellent visual design, will I enjoy the game more? Of course I will. But out of the 30 plus hours that I put into this game, only about 9.5 or so were actually me solving puzzles as opposed to watching the story unfold. Even when a game has a wonderful story such as this one, when there's not a lot of gameplay to actually play, there's a lack of substance to break up the story. And that can get pretty annoying when the cutscenes are taking up the majority of your actual play time. What gameplay that exists here is fantastic. I just wish that there could have been just a little bit more put in during certain parts. If you can overlook that, you're going to love this game, and other than that, I don't really have much else to complain about. Most of my other problems with Zero Escape are just minor nitpicks, like why do you have to choose your language every time you boot up the game? Why not just have an option to switch it during the game if you change your mind? In fact, why do you need to select a file when you only have one save file to choose from? I mean, that's just dumb. Just have a new game, continue, and delete option. Also, big shock, the 3D doesn't add anything during the cutscenes or the puzzles, though, in all fairness, it is a multi-platform title, so I didn't expect it to do much in the first place. It really is a shame, because the gameplay and narrative of Zero Escape are actually interwoven quite nicely. It's just, there's not a whole lot of gameplay actually put into there. For me, gameplay will always come first, no matter what, and then story, if there is one. Even though Zero Escape has fantastic gameplay, it could have benefited from just shoving in just a little bit more into there. That's not to say you won't enjoy it. The puzzles are incredibly well constructed. It's just a shame that there's not more of them. Finally, the presentation. Now I can't speak for the Vita version, but on the 3DS, Zero Escape is pretty solid. Admittedly, most of the environments in the facility are gray and unappealing, but there are a few standouts that look quite good. Character models look unique and expressive, each having their unique reactions to certain situations. As for their voices, you have the option to choose Japanese or English, which is a nice option if you prefer the Japanese voices. The English voice actors range from decent to really great. The sound quality of the voice work, however, is questionable. It just sounds like it was all compressed. It's incredibly noticeable whenever somebody makes an S sound. I heard the PlayStation Vita's version has much better sound quality, but as it stands, the 3DS voice work still sounds decent for the most part. And it's easy to forgive this when you have such fantastic voice work. But the best and most surprising part of this game's presentation is the soundtrack. It has some truly haunting and downright creepy tracks that are absolutely perfect in setting the tone of a scene and capturing the foreboding atmosphere in this gloomy scenario. All of these compositions get your heart pumping faster and faster and the hair on the back of your neck just stand up. It's simply fantastic. Zero Escape Virtue's Last Stand definitely has its ups and downs when it comes to the presentation, but it never fails to be anything less than great. Overall, Zero Escape is actually a surprisingly chilling title and a downright brilliant visual novel, scoring an 8 out of 10 for me. Now, I wanted to give this game a higher score. I really did. But what it all came down to is that for as much as I enjoyed the story, and as much as I loved every single puzzle, I just couldn't get over the fact that relative to the gameplay, the story is dominating the entire game. That being said, if you love a visual novel and you're looking for some great puzzles, then I don't need to tell you that you need to get this game. For your PS Vita or 3DS, you'll love it either way. However, if you're new to the visual novel style, and you're looking for something just a little bit darker, then give Zero Escape a chance. You might enjoy it. So that's it for this Hallow's Eve. Until next time, game on my friends, and bonne nuit.
Oh, by the way, how come you weren't surprised by me interrupting your video?
I live in a basement with a possessed Chrono Trigger poster, and for some reason I went back to wearing a skirt. Quite frankly, nothing in life surprises me anymore.